right. Greetings, System Failure listeners. Nathan here with your short podcast, your quickie for this week, in which I shall be reading this week's essay entitled Ego and Mortality and subtitled How Our Bizarre Perception of Time Gives Rise to the Illusion of Self. Last week's essay, The Symphony Analogy, used calculus as a springboard to suggest a certain interchangeability between the dimension of time, as measured with a stopwatch, and the three physical dimensions that we measure with rulers, namely length, width, and height. The following essay extends that analogy with a fictional head of broccoli, rendered by the questionable artistic talents of the author. Sidebar here, you all will have to log on to not.substack.com in order to see my artistic stylings, but yeah, there you have it. Being products of nature, both broccoli and humanity share a common structure. That structure pops into view when we use our mind's eye to swap out one of those physical dimensions with a time dimension. This broccoli analogy will fundamentally alter your conception of yourself and expose your sense of individuality for the illusion that it is. Just like our concept of mortality, our individuality, or our ego, is a purely mental phenomenon that arises from a tragic inability to fast forward or rewind time. Your ego is your mental conception of yourself. As a subjective observer, you triangulate on external objects by focusing your two eyes. But when I ask you to focus on yourself, you can only mirror this triangular pattern and interpolate backwards to a reverse focal point behind your eyes. This gives rise to that familiar feeling that you are riding around inside your head, looking out through your eyes like windshields. That inverted focal point feels like the seat of your consciousness. It feels like you. And the essay has an illustration of this, a top-down view of a skull with two eyes triangulating on an external object, in a caption that reads, when asked to reflect on itself, the brain mirrors this triangulation backwards to a point behind the eyes, where really there is nothing but brain meat. In the physical world, of course, there is nothing behind your eyes but brain meat. But you are not your brain. You have a brain. Your parents didn't name your brain, nor did they name your body. They named an imaginary spot behind your eyes and acted as if that spot has a brain and a body. Though it's the most useful of fictions, your ego is entirely a construct within your mind. The late ethnobotanist Terence McKenna loved to state that the ego is just the tool we used to know whose mouth to feed at the dinner table. It's just the mental reflection of your physical body. You walk around all day behaving as if this reflection is really you, but it's actually just a phantom. You are no more your ego than you are your reflection in the mirror. There's a fundamental connection between time and ego. If ego is the mental reflection of the physical body, then it's every bit as time dependent as the body. Picture a head of broccoli. Notice that the main stem of the broccoli divides itself into many smaller stems. If you chop your broccoli near the florets, you get a cross-section of many small stems. If you chop it in the middle, you get a cross-section of a few medium-sized stems. And if you slice it at the stalk, you'll get a cross-section of only the large main stem. And as mentioned, I sketched up a nice picture of broccoli with some cross-sections taken at different places. You can see that again at not.substack.com. And underneath is a caption that reads, chopping this broccoli head near the florets yields 9 stems, but slice it in the middle and there are only 3 stems. At the base, there is only 1 stem. The number of individual stems depends on where you chop the broccoli. That's the caption. The essay continues. The number of individual stems that result from taking a cross-section depends on where you decide to take that two-dimensional slice. Only in the fullness of 3 dimensions are the apparently individual stems revealed to be part of one continuous whole. Since we, like broccoli, are products of nature, the human story has a very similar geometry to it. to see that similarity, we need only swap out a physical dimension, measured by rulers, with a temporal dimension, measured by stopwatches. Converting the length of the broccoli into a temporal dimension might be represented by a table with time 1, 2, and 3 in one column, and then the number of individual stems in another column, reading 1 stem at time 1, 3 stems at time 2, and 9 stems at time 3. We can take in all the inches on a ruler in a single glance, but we cannot fast forward or rewind a stopwatch. We're stuck experiencing thin slices of the temporal dimension one by one, in sequential order, like a flipbook animation. This limitation on our perception is what makes us feel like mortals. If we could rewind or fast forward time, the idea of mortality would lose all coherence. Life and death could be experienced any number of times. In a related way, time also creates the illusion of individuality that has so plagued human history. The circular cross-sections of individual broccoli stems in the illustration are only really individuals within that two-dimensional slice. With length standing in for time, it's easy for us to see that their status as individuals is an illusion. The 9 small cross-sections, the 3 medium-sized ones, and the single main stem are really part of a single continuous whole. If you had to use a stopwatch to measure the length of the broccoli, those cross-sections would all appear to be individual circles within each two-dimensional slice. Their connection would be hidden from perception. And so it is with humankind. We appear to each other as individuals only because we are stuck measuring history with a stopwatch. If we beheld human history as a physical shape, instead of being stuck with an animated flipbook of slices in time, it would be immediately obvious that we're all part of a single continuous whole. Throughout history, we've been as root tendrils blindly encountering each other underground in the dark, ignorant of the divine reality that we're all actually part of the same tree. In this analogy, the blackness that conceals our ultimate unity from us is the bizarre and limited way in which we perceive time. And additionally, on this essay, I included a YouTube link to the late, great Carl Sagan giving a breakdown of dimensionality in his usual approachable manner. That's a worthy YouTube click. It's only about 7 minutes long, so it won't take too long. I'd highly recommend checking that one out. And with that, folks, that is your quickie for this week. We'll be back on Monday with another full-length podcast with Brian, your venerable co-host, and me. And in the meantime, if you crave some titillating essays to wet your whistle, head on over to nop.substack.com. There you'll find a veritable trove. And if you'd like to send me an email or us an email and let us know about our wacky ideas here on System Failure, you can do that at nop@substack.com. And with that, folks, I bid you adieu. Have a good week.